In grassroots football, there's a troubling paradox that can affect coaches' mental health. The coaches who follow best practices, those focusing on player development, long-term growth and enjoyment over immediate results, often face more criticism and pressure from parents, carers, guardians, PCGs than those who prioritize winning at all costs. This creates a mental health challenge that's rarely discussed but significantly impacts the very people we rely on to develop our young footballers in the right way. Understanding the development versus results paradox. What good coaching looks like. Development-focused coaching prioritizes long-term player growth over short-term results, ensures all players get meaningful playing time to develop, teaches proper technique even when it initially slows down play, focuses on decision-making, creativity, and understanding of the game, emphasizes enjoyment, confidence building, and love of football, makes tactical decisions based on learning opportunities rather than just winning. The immediate reality: teams may lose more games while players learn proper techniques. Results can appear inconsistent as players experiment and develop. Individual player statistics may seem lower as the focus shifts from star players to team development. Progress may be less visible to spectators who focus on scorelines. Short-term sacrifices are made for long-term player benefit. What results-focused coaching looks like. Win-at-all-costs coaching prioritizes immediate results over player development, plays the strongest players for most of the game, regardless of development needs, uses tactics that work in the short term but don't develop players' skills, focuses on exploiting weaknesses in youth football, size, speed, rather than building football intelligence, may sacrifice player enjoyment and confidence for temporary success, makes decisions based primarily on winning the next game. The immediate reality: teams may win more games in the short term. Results appear consistent and successful to casual observers. Star players' statistics look impressive. Progress seems obvious to spectators focused on scores. Immediate gratification for results-focused parents. Players may appear successful despite limited actual development. The mental health impact on coaches. The emotional toll of doing right. Constant criticism for best practices. Coaches who rotate players fairly receive complaints about team selection. Those who teach proper technique get criticized when it initially affects performance. Coaches focused on development hear constant questioning of their tactical decisions. They face pressure to abandon developmentally appropriate practices for short-term results. Isolation and self-doubt. Feeling unsupported despite following recommended coaching practices, questioning whether they're doing the right thing when faced with constant criticism, feeling isolated from parents who don't understand development-focused approaches, wondering if the stress is worth it when trying to do what's best for players. Professional and personal stress, anxiety before parent interactions and team meetings, sleep difficulties related to stress about criticism and confrontation, physical symptoms of stress affecting health and well-being, strain on family relationships due to football-related stress, the psychological pressure, cognitive dissonance, knowing they're doing the right thing while constantly being told they're not, receiving criticism for practices that are supported by coaching education, feeling pressure to compromise their values to reduce criticism, struggling to maintain confidence in evidence-based coaching approaches, imposter syndrome, doubting their coaching ability despite following best practices, feeling like they must be doing something wrong due to constant criticism, comparing themselves to results-focused coaches who can receive less criticism, questioning their knowledge and education when challenged by uninformed critics. Moral distress, wanting to maintain development focus but feeling pressured to change, seeing other coaches potentially compromise player welfare and receive praise for results, feeling responsible for parents' disappointment despite doing what's best for players, struggling with the conflict between doing right and being popular. Why this paradox exists. Parent Carer Guardian (PCG) knowledge gaps limited football understanding. Many PCG lack knowledge about proper player development principles. They may not understand the complexity of youth football coaching. Their football knowledge might come from watching professional games, where different principles apply. They may not realize the difference between adult and youth football development needs. Results-focused perspective. PCG often focus on immediate, visible outcomes, wins, goals, playing time for their child. They may not understand long-term development goals and timelines. Their concern for their child's immediate happiness can override development considerations. They may equate team success with their child's progress. Immediate versus long-term thinking. Short-term visibility. Results are immediately obvious and easy to measure. Development progress is often gradual and less visible. Parents see what happens in 60, 80, 90 minutes, not what develops over months or years. Immediate dissatisfaction with results overshadows long-term benefits. Misunderstanding development. PCG may not realize that proper development sometimes involves temporary struggles. They might not understand that early success through poor coaching can harm long-term progress. The connection between current teaching methods and future player success isn't always clear. They may prioritize their child's immediate confidence over long-term skill development. The hidden damage to football. Impact on good coaches. Coach burnout. Talented, educated coaches are leaving youth football due to stress and criticism. Good coaches are becoming reluctant to volunteer or take on teams. Experienced coaches are reducing their involvement to avoid PCG pressure. Mental health conditions affecting coaches to contribute. Compromised coaching. Development-focused coaches feeling pressured to abandon best practices. Good coaches second-guessing evidence-based approaches due to criticism. Coaches prioritizing PCG satisfaction over player development. Reduction in coaching quality as coaches avoid controversial but correct decisions. Impact on player development. Short-term thinking. Players missing out on proper development for immediate results. Young footballers learning poor habits that limit long-term progress. Reduced emphasis on creativity, decision-making, and football intelligence. Players experiencing less enjoyment and more pressure. Systemic problems. Good coaching becoming rarer as coaches avoid youth football (PCG) and players developing unrealistic expectations about development. Community football culture prioritizes results over player welfare. Long-term decline in player development standards. Supporting coaches' mental health for football communities. Education and awareness. Provide PCG education about proper youth football development. Share information about why development-focused coaching is essential. Explain the timeline and process of proper player development. Help PCG understand the difference between good and poor coaching practices. Creating supportive environments. Establish clear club policies about coaching approaches and PCG behavior. Provide mental health resources specifically for coaches. Create support networks where coaches can share experiences and strategies. Recognize and celebrate coaches who prioritize development over results. Protecting good coaches. Implement codes of conduct that protect coaches from inappropriate criticism. Address PCG behavior that undermines good coaching practices. Provide mediation and conflict resolution support for coaches facing criticism. Create systems where coaches feel supported by club leadership. For coaches experiencing this pressure. Maintaining perspective. Remember that criticism often reflects PCG anxiety rather than coaching quality. Connect with other development-focused coaches for support and validation. Keep records of player progress that extend beyond match results. Focus on long-term player outcomes rather than short-term parent satisfaction. Building support. Seek out coaching education and mentorship that reinforces best practices. Connect with coaching associations and support networks. Find allies among PCG who understand and support development-focused approaches. Access mental health support when stress becomes overwhelming. Professional development. Continue learning about and implementing evidence-based coaching practices. Document player development progress to demonstrate coaching effectiveness. Communicate clearly with parents about coaching philosophy and methods. Build confidence through ongoing education and peer support. For PCGs and families, understanding development. Learn about proper youth football development principles. Understand the timeline for skill development and player growth. Recognize the difference between coaching for development and coaching for results. Appreciate that good coaching sometimes involves short-term sacrifices for long-term benefits. Supporting good coaching. Trust coaches who prioritize development over immediate results. Ask questions about development philosophy rather than criticizing specific decisions. Focus on your child's long-term growth rather than immediate team success. Recognize and appreciate coaches who follow best practices even when results don't immediately follow.
Creating change. Shifting the culture. Education initiatives. Clubs providing regular PCG education about youth football development. Sharing success stories of players who benefited from development-focused coaching. Demonstrating the long-term outcomes of proper coaching approaches. Creating awareness about the mental health impact of inappropriate pressure on coaches. Recognition and support. Celebrating coaches who maintain development focus despite pressure. Providing platforms for good coaches to share their approaches and philosophy. Creating peer support networks for coaches facing similar challenges. Offering mental health resources specifically designed for youth coaches. Policy and structure. Establishing clear expectations about PCG behavior and support for coaches. Creating systems that protect coaches from inappropriate criticism. Implementing club policies that prioritize development over results. Providing conflict resolution and mediation support when issues arise. Long-term benefits. For players, better long-term development through proper coaching. Increased enjoyment and love of football. Development of life skills alongside football skills. Reduced pressure and increased confidence. For coaches, improved mental health and job satisfaction. Ability to focus on best practices without constant criticism. Greater retention of good coaches in youth football. Professional development and growth opportunities. For communities, stronger youth football programs focused on proper development. More positive football culture that values growth over winning. Better relationships between coaches, parents, and players. Long-term improvement in player development standards. Moving forward. The mental health of coaches matters not just for the individuals involved, but for the future of youth football development. When we pressure good coaches to abandon best practices, we harm both the coaches and the players they're trying to develop. Creating supportive environments for development-focused coaches requires Understanding that good coaching sometimes means accepting short-term disappointing results. Recognizing that coaches following best practices deserve support, not criticism. Educating ourselves about proper youth development principles. Prioritizing long-term player growth over immediate gratification. Supporting coaches' mental health is essential to player development. The coaches who focus on development despite pressure and criticism are the ones our young players need most. Supporting their mental health isn't just the right thing to do, it's essential for the future of football development. By changing how we think about and support youth coaching, we can create environments where good coaches thrive, players develop properly, and everyone enjoys the beautiful game.